This is from 1 Kings chapter 3, New International Version. Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married his daughter. He brought her to the city of David until he finished building his palace and the temple of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. The people, however, were still sacrificing at the high places because a temple had not been built for the name of the Lord. Solomon showed his love for the Lord by walking according to the instructions given him by his father David, except that he offered sacrifices and burned incense on the high places. The king went to Gibeon to offer sacrifices, for that was the most important high place, and Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Solomon answered, "You have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. You have continued this great kindness to him and have given him a son to sit on his throne this very day. Now, Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, but I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours?" The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, "Since you have asked for this and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. And if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commands as David your father did, I will give you a long life." Then Solomon awoke and he realized it had been a dream. He returned to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the Lord's covenant and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then he gave a feast for all his court. Now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, "Pardon me, my lord. This woman and I live in the same house. I had a baby while she was there with me. The 3rd day after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There was no one in the house but the 2 of us. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning, I got up to nurse my son, and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had born." The other woman said, "No, the living one is my son, the dead one is yours." But the first one insisted, "No, the dead one is yours, the living one is mine." And so they argued before the king. The king said, "This one says my son is alive and your son is dead, while that one says, no, your son is dead and mine is alive." Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order, "Cut the living child in 2 and give half to one and half to the other." The woman whose son was alive was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him." But the other said, "Neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in 2. Then the king gave his ruling, "Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother." When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe, because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice.
Thank you once again for that reading. So we're now in 1 Kings and chapter 3. And what's happened now is David has been a great king. He's grown the kingdom. It's become a very powerful kingdom. He's done preparations for a temple, but due to something he did in the past, he was not allowed to build the temple. And God said, "Your son's going to build the temple." So anyway, so his son Solomon comes into rule, and one of the first things we read in chapter 3 is Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married his daughter. Not a great start. What do we know? Yeah, throughout history of during the Bible, basically when spiritually times were not going so well, they looked to Egypt for help, or they looked to Assyria. And so Solomon starts badly, and if you like, he brings in all the stuff about Egypt. Do you remember about Egypt? Do you remember all the idols? Do you remember it was all the evil, the wickedness is now in the palace, in the very palace. So the difference between David and Solomon is huge. However, he was young, so and you get the idea that he didn't know what he'd done. And so as we read through, we find that Solomon did love the Lord, so it wasn't a question that his heart was hard against the Lord. He loved the Lord, he offered sacrifices, and he even burnt 1,000 burnt offerings at the altar. And during the night, he had a dream. Now this is important. This was a dream. And if you like, God spoke to him, and he was speaking to God, and they were having a conversation about what was going on. And in this dream, he said, "I'm only a little child, and I do not know how to do my duties." And it basically, the honesty. And in Old Testament, the more honest people are, if you like, the more good stuff happens. And so, please give your servant a discerning heart to govern the people and to distinguish between right and wrong. So, if you like, and out of that, the Lord, it says in verse 10, the Lord was pleased he asked this. And it says, "Because you haven't asked for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have you asked for death of your enemies, but for discernment to administer justice. I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never be anyone like you, there's never been anyone like you, will never be. And moreover, I will give you not just what you've asked for, but riches and honours, that in your lifetime there will be no equal among kings." Notice this again. "If you obey my ways and walk in my statutes, then I will give you a long life." Then Solomon awoke and realised it had been a dream. Now, so don't forget, this was a dream. So often people say, "Yeah, what was going on here?" And you have to say that dream was probably what he most wanted. But here goes the thing. He had that. He had the wisdom, and was it enough for him? And as you read through the life of Solomon, no, it wasn't enough. Although it was, if you like, it was good, but it wasn't the best. It was good, but if you look what happened to his own life, he had thousands of concubines. He probably got that from what they did in Egypt. They probably had thousands of concubines. So he had all these things in life, and he chased after women, and then he tried to become wiser and wiser and wiser. And in the end, it all went to nothingness. So you ask yourself, so if he asked for wisdom and that's not enough, what should he have asked for? Well, we find in later scriptures, if you like, Elisha asked for a double portion of Elijah's spirit. And what Solomon should ask is the very things that were in David that pleased the Lord, that he could have had the double portion of that, a heart after the Lord. And then the rest would have all followed. Let us be people that ask for a heart after the Lord instead of other things. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you'll be able to come back tomorrow.